Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me. This is kind of fun for me because until like 6 months ago, I was there, and now I'm here. So that's kind of awesome. Anyway, and then my partner Monica is in the corner. She probably doesn't want me to say that, but she came to hang out and listen as well. So, but anyway, thank you guys so much. What we're gonna do, Johnny and I had been talking for the last couple of weeks, kind of how we wanted to do this, what we thought would be the most impactful for this audience, and I asked him to kind of do this more as a Q&A session, more open feedback and questions, and so we worked together on some stuff that I think is going to be pretty cool, and then I'm going to spend the first few minutes kind of talking about the story of FitMetrix, and then, did it say FitMetrix of it? Yeah, FitMetrix, sweet. So talking about the story of FitMetrix, and then a little bit of our background, just kind of what our product does. I won't bore anyone too much because I'm not trying to sell the product. Although if you're interested, we have a booth downstairs. Throw it on, to what you guys do. All right, let's see if this works. Maybe. Sweet. All right, so first of all, a little bit about the background of our company, how we got started, sort of the evolution from, hey, this is kind of a cool idea to, well, MindBody buying us. And so it's kind of a fun story. So I mentioned Monica, who's in the picture, both in real life over there. She and I started the company end of 2013, beginning of 2014. Really by chance, I would say mostly. So we both have kind of two different sides of the story, but it's a fun story regardless. So I've been in technology since I graduated college in 1998, and I was running another startup company that I had actually founded, and it was in the e-commerce sort of order management, supply chain management space, and we grew basically from just me and an idea to about 60 employees by the time I had met Monica. And I was not expecting to start FitMetrix, hadn't really thought about it at all, but I moved in next door to her. I think that's the best way any startup should happen. You just kind of move in next door to someone's like, hey, I have a good idea. I'm like, that's cool, let's go do that. So, but that's pretty much what happened. So Monica was gonna open up a spin studio. We're from Atlanta, we're out of Atlanta. And so Monica and I met, and she was telling me she was gonna open a spin studio, and she's super impressive herself. She's from Italy. She's an attorney with a law degree out of Italy, moved to the States, got another law degree here because one wasn't enough, so you need two. And I highly recommend starting a business with a person with a law degree, by the way. It saves a ton of money. Anyway, so she was going to open a spin studio, and while we were talking, Monica started telling me, I'm really struggling because I know what I want, but I can't find the right technology solution. And I was like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? She goes, well, I really want people to be able to, have a really white glove treatment when they're booking classes on my website. I want to have an app. I want to have an experience in the studio where they can get meaningful data, and then that data translates to, making themselves feel more better about themselves and coming back and, being sticky to the brand. And so that was all we really knew. We didn't know much else. I'm like, well, that's pretty sweet. Like, I go to the gym. I hate spin class, but I like talking to you about it, so we'll figure something out. I know a lot about technology, so let's see what happens. And so basically, we started talking, and I was like, well, what solution are you going to look at? And for the billing, for the booking classes and everything, she goes, well, MindBody. Like, everyone runs their studios on MindBody. I got to look at MindBody. And said, well, okay, so if we have to get performance data, we have to know who's sitting on the bikes, because it was a spin studio, so how do I know what bike somebody is sitting on? I had to go figure that out. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a no-brainer. Like, I just got to put some stuff on the screen. Let me call the API guys at MindBody, and they'll just, I'm sure they have all this web stuff figured out and pick a spot figured out, and all I'm going to have to do is figure out, hey, Monica was on bike 7, and I'm good, and I'll throw her up on a screen, and this will be a fun little just sort of side project, and we'll see what happens with it. So I was pretty fortunate because she's very persistent, and she calls her sales rep. She goes, cool, so I was going to open a spin studio. I sort of changed my mind. I'm not going to build a technology business. And by the way, can I talk to your API team? And she's like, I don't even actually know what an API is, but I still need to talk to those guys. Is it true? Yeah. So that's what happened. So she managed to get a hold of somebody on the API team, and I got on the phone with this person. I said, hey, this is what we want to do. And they said, great, we'll give you access to our public API. And I said, great, I'm sure you do the pick a spot, right? I'm just through the API, I can figure out who's on which bike. And they go, yeah, no, that doesn't exist. None of it exists. I remember very clearly walking back into her house. She was sitting in her kitchen. I said, hey, listen, just got off the phone with the API team. She's like, great, what'd they say? And I said, well, they said they don't do any of it. So if we want to build it, we're going to build an entire system. We're going to build a website. We're going to build an app. We're going to build an entire in-studio performance platform. And she looks at me and she goes, well, what do you think? I'm like, I think it's going to be friggin' hard. And she goes, well, how hard can it be? Famous words. And I was like, you know, all right. I was like, she's pretty optimistic. I think this is pretty cool. I love working out. I'm like, let's just go for it. And so we sat down, and this was about beginning of 2014, really. We said, we're going to go do this. And about 4 months later, we had kind of, actually, let me back up a little bit. A couple of months later, somebody who knew Monica and knew that we were going to do this and said, hey, I want to introduce you to a company. I want you to show them what you guys are building. And so this was, like I said, probably April 2014, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I said, okay. So literally all we had was a PowerPoint. We had nothing. We had nothing. But I had known from my prior experience, my other company, you know, pretty good how to fake it a little bit till you actually have something reality. I'm sure none of us in this room has ever done that. And so we did. We got on the phone with this particular company, and they were like, holy crap, we need this, but we need it in 30 days. And she's looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, it's not happening. We had a PowerPoint. That company was Orange Theory. And so they were, you know, this is 4 years ago, so they knew what they saw what we had. They knew, like, wow, that's pretty awesome. And so effectively what ended up happening is that we obviously couldn't deliver, but it immediately validated that we were onto something. So the conversation from MindBody saying, God, that doesn't exist, and we've heard that request so many times, and then having Orange Theory validate that, it just made us push harder. So Monica would come into my office, literally at a 60-person company. We're crushing it. We had big customers. I would sneak her into the back door of the office. I had my designer. I was very fortunate. I had some very good just resources I was able to utilize on the side. My designer, a couple of my front-end developers. I built the whole platform myself from the back end initially. And 3 months later, I called MindBody back, and I was like, hey, cool, can I show you what we built? And there was a gentleman that used to work here. Some of you may know Eric Tucker. He was here at the time, and he was our first point of contact really into MindBody. And he kept it pretty close to the vest, I have to be honest. He didn't really give too much of like, holy crap, I can't believe you guys actually built what you said you were going to build. All he said was, well, cool, if you get 10 customers, let me know. So, okay. So we did, right? Well, actually, we got our first customer in that August. It didn't take that long, and they were in Atlanta called Georgia Fitness, running MindBody, and we ran their heart rate stuff, and then we shortly after that, had our second customer in November, and we're like, man, this is awesome. Like, there's just coming in. Yeah, the second customer fired us because they were our second customer. And then our third customer had just come on board that January, and I said to her, I was like, we got to go to IHRSA. She's like, you're freaking crazy. I'm like, no, we got to go to IHRSA. Have you guys ever been to IHRSA? Anybody? A few people? Yeah. So the thought process was, if we don't, and this is how, he said innovative. It's just me, I would say impatient. Would probably be a much better word to describe myself. I was like, if we don't go to IHRSA, we're going to miss an entire year. Like, we have to go to IHRSA. And so Monica was like, okay. She was sort of kicking and screaming. Yeah. But she built the most awesome 10 by 10 booth ever. I don't know how it happened. We looked like we had $1 zillion. People were like, holy crap, what is this stuff? We literally had 2 customers. We walked away with Gold's Gym, 140 corporate locations, Cycle Bar at their first location to grow with them through, now they have 100 and some odd locations. Best Fitness, Burn 60, I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. Then we actually had to go make stuff work. So we're like, okay, we better go figure that part out. But we did. Fast forward from that March till 2 years later, we have about 1,300-ish customers. Started getting a lot of phone calls, including our good friends at MindBody, and it went pretty quick from there. So we got acquired in February. It's been pretty awesome. I know I left out a lot of stuff in between. We'll talk about it. There's questions. But it's been an amazing experience even since getting acquired, and we get to keep our brand that was super important to us, continue to grow the platform, continue to make the business decisions, and so to go from a partner understanding, we can talk about SOAP API limitations if you guys want out in the hallway, I'd be thrilled to do that. They still exist. But knowing all of the good, the bad, and just really focusing on the customer and making a product that made sense in the market, that was always sort of our clear direction, and that's what we did. So anyway, that's our whole backstory for the most part. I don't think I missed anything. Probably a few fights here and there, but those happened. They were my fault though, Monica. All right, let me see, hold on. So a little bit about the platform. So this is super interesting also. So you guys, I guarantee you a lot of you in this room have had this exact experience, this exact conversation. So we start building the platform out. Well, we built a website solution. Oh, this is cool. People can book classes. All right, they can pay for services. We can buy contracts. We can let them manage their account, update their credit card, use gift cards, like all this stuff. We built an entire cool back-end system to kind of manage all of this as well. And then we start building a lot of the other things, which I'll get into in a second. Number one question I get from big customers, I just heard I don't know, thinking from that area when I was over there, this whole enterprise conversation of how do you not let enterprise customers drive your roadmap. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I have a pretty strong opinion about that. But the number one question I got, well, why do I need MindBody? Like, you guys just go do it. Like, go build it. And we would sit, I mean, like any other good startup, we're like, well, yeah, why do they need MindBody? Like, we'll just go do this ourselves, right? And, you know, just being very honest about it, we started thinking about it. But, you know, you go back to it and like, God, billing is hard and payments are hard. And a lot of what MindBody does is really, really good, and it's hard. And oh, by the way, there's ABC Financial for the health clubs, and MotionSoft, and Daxco for the YMCA's, and you know, Club Ready, and all these other brands. I'm like, well, I don't want to be another one of those guys. Like, we're good at what we do. Well, what is it that we're good at? We're good at being in front of the customer. Like, that's what we figured out. The consumer, not our customer, but the consumer. So we said, you know what? And it took us a long time to figure that out. Like, let's just be focused on what the consumer needs. And that's what we did. So if you're in the studio, we've got really cool performance stuff. I'll show you guys one thing I'm pretty proud of is one of our newest products that we just came out with in May. We have a really, really beautiful branded app. Another interesting conversation, because MindBody also happens to have a really beautiful branded app, right? So we're still figuring that out. Digital website experience. We built a product for trainers, personal trainers, a trainer portal to help those guys engage with their customers, and group management. Group management, and this is an interesting thing, you know, we're going to talk later about products versus features. And group management is something we saw an opportunity in. We were already doing other stuff. We said, hey, we think this can be an add-on service, and it was, and you know, it's pretty cool. So let's see what else we got. So this is our in studio. Has anyone ever used our stuff in studio? A few people, yeah. Core, you guys definitely should. Appreciate it. Yeah, so we have our cycling leaderboards and our heart rate stuff, very customizable. One thing about what we built, you know, from a development or technology perspective, I was always somebody told me this years ago, build like Amazon, right? Everything has kind of an on-off switch. Everything is configurable, don't hard code anything. So cool, you don't like the logo, put your own logo. You don't like the background color, you really, really don't like stuff, here's access to the style sheets and the JavaScript, go nuts. Like, just make it how you want. We're not going to be a custom dev shop for you guys, unless you have a lot of locations, that will be a custom dev shop probably a little bit. Just only a little, we try not to do that. But for the most part, you know, so we tried to make everything super customizable. But this is where we started a really gamified experience in the studio. We do cycling, we do rowing, we do treadmills, we do heart rate as well. This is our newest product, super, super cool. So it's kind of hard to see up there, sorry. But the idea is, this is my favorite thing to tell. You guys can raise your hand, tell me if this doesn't happen to you. You know, you guys, most people in here have taken at least one sort of circuit training class in their life where there's like 10, 20 stations, and you're standing in class, and the instructor goes around the room, and he's like, all right, cool, here you're going to do burpees, and here you're going to do some kind of squat, and here you're going to do lunge, and you're like, wait, what the hell did I do at station 2? So we're like, well, that needs to be put up on a TV screen, like obviously, so that the instructor now becomes so much more about you and your form and helping you be better about what you're doing and not reminding you, hey, you were supposed to be doing this exercise here versus that. It's on the friggin' TV, nice and big, and you can go see it. So we partnered with another integration partner for the content because we're not doing content. And now our customers can create workouts, distribute them across multiple locations really easily. Very cool. So we just rolled this out in March. It's getting some good traction. I will say imitation is the best form of flattery, and F45 does a very good job of this. And so when we knew we were going to do this, I called Monica up. I'm like, hey, I think you need to switch where you're working out and go work out at F45 for a while so we can go see how this works and figure it out. And you know, so they do a great job, we think, to bring it to the masses. It's a big thing that how we look at things, right? Like, you know, companies like Orange Theory and F45 and other large brands, they have the resources in the IT department to say, hey, we can go build stuff. Well, not 58,000 MindBody studios do not. And so when you think in that way, you're like, hey, if somebody's doing something really well, it's probably going to scale really well as well. So that's how we look at it. So our app was a complete accident, I'd like to say, when we built our app. Chanel knows a little bit about it. But because we don't just work with MindBody customers, we work with other customers on other platforms, we realized it was a pretty big need. So that was a very fun/awkward conversation one day about 2 years ago when we called MindBody to say, hey, so I know you have this really cool app. So FitMetrix has a really cool app too now. We figured it out, and the customers really like it. And some big differentiation is workout tracking, right? So that's what we do. It's at the heart of what we do. So you can do all the cool booking and everything, but you can also track your workouts. Website, fully integrated. Again, thoughtfulness around letting the customer customize it, right? So it's got to match the brand. My background is enterprise customers in particular. So build something for enterprise that's easy enough for the small guys to use is something that I believe gets you a lot of traction. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. What else do we have? Emails can be customized, which is pretty cool. That's our personal training stuff. It's all pretty. Works on the phone too. And then the group management, like I said, that was one of the last things we did. But the idea was just incredibly simple. It's really just, at the end of the day, by itself, it's just a feature probably. But it was a big gap for MindBody, and we were doing so much other stuff. We said, well, let's do it. In short, it does a few things. The highlight of it is, if Monica can't teach her class, she can self-manage to say, hey, I can't teach and I need a substitute instructor. It blasts all the other instructors who are allowed to teach that class. That person goes, oh, cool, I can take it. They take the class. It automatically updates the billing system so payroll works and all those other good things happen, right? So pretty simple. MindBody happened to have a very, very easy API endpoint to use. It said, change the class instructor. I don't remember the name of it, but it was there. We were able to take advantage of it, and it's been pretty well received. So it's a huge pain point, honestly, for studios. So I mentioned integrations a lot. We integrate with Perkville. We work with Live Edit as well. We have a lot of shared customers, probably with a lot of you guys. Some of you guys are our customers, which is pretty awesome. Some of you guys are our prospects, so that's awesome too. But yeah, we really, depending on what, our platform covers so much stuff. So when we said, well, who do we compete against? That question comes up a lot. Like in the heart rate platform side of the house, it's MyZone is probably the name that comes up the most. They're a great company. The problem is they're a hardware company, not a software company, right? So when you look at the heart rate monitors we integrate, we happen to work with MyZone monitors and all these other guys. We don't care. We built an open platform. If you're using Polar heart rate monitors and you like our software, just use our software. It's a better software platform. Buy whatever monitors you want to buy. Apps, we try to integrate with whatever apps we can. Yeah, Perkville's down there actually on the bottom. Good job, Chanel. You got a spot on the slide. The different bikes that we can work with, tons of design, tons of agencies and so on. So we really just believe to be an open system. We actually have we do have a REST API. I don't know if I should say that too loud. But we do have a REST API, so can integrate to us, pull, push, all that fun stuff. So anyway, that's it. That's FitMetrix in I don't know how long that was, but in a quick nutshell. So. And I'm gonna
So we're going to move to a series of questions that we think will elicit some of the best stories and insights from Josh, somewhat chronologically. If you're dying to ask something, I think the room has been wonderful and polite and smarter than me, and I think just, put your hand up or stand up or shout it out. But rest assured that we have a lot to get through, and we will wring a lot out of him. I was on the edge of my seat. You kept foreshadowing product versus feature, so if you don't mind, I'd like to start there. What's the difference?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting because a lot of times, we get approached by companies like, I've got this awesome idea, and we're going to take it to market, and this is what it looks like, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it's a great idea, but at the end of the day, I think it's a feature of something larger, and so would I have gone out and built a substitute management product by itself and then sold it to MindBody customers? I don't know, because I think that's something I look at as such a feature that MindBody ultimately should just have within their system, and probably could easily develop if they saw the desire to do so. And so I think it's really, really hard, to be honest with yourself as a startup, to figure out, am I building a feature or am I building a product or a platform that's going to sustain? And I think besides FitMetrix, I think the partners that I've seen that have had the most success, that we work with, and some of them in the room here, are building sustainable products that are going to continue to scale and grow and evolve, and I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, let's kind of get to the start in the way that we intended then. Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah, and this, you've done a bit of it already, but there was an odd mix of building tech and being able to sell it.
Yeah, so I'm a big Dolphins fan. I apologize in advance, but they've sucked for like several years, so no one can be too offended about that, unless you're a Raiders fan this week. Anyway, no, I am kind of a weird duck in the sense that I can sell and I can build, and there's not many people that do both. And so it made starting a company a lot easier, because then I basically said, when Monica and I had to figure out what the heck we were going to do, I was like, cool, can you just do everything else and I'm good. So I just sold and built, right? No, but it's true. So just getting feedback, understanding what the opportunity is, talking to customers, I'm a huge believer in that. Understanding, if you start hearing something a couple of times, hey, that's a pretty cool idea, get it built quickly. Again, I'm impatient or innovative, depends which word you want to use. And just get it into the platform and get it out there and selling it. And I love it. I love being able to talk to customers and sell them, and I love being able to build as well. My background, for what it's worth, my family, going back to my grandfather, was in the car business. So if you want to know why I can sell, it's because when I was 13 years old, my dad decided it would be a good idea to teach me how to sell cars. So I basically sold cars from the time I was 13 until about 22, and then every now and again still may do something here and there. But that's why I learned how to sell, and I've been selling software pretty much since I graduated college.
And staying chronological, what was your early career?
That was my early career, unless I'm forgetting something else we spoke about. But that was it. I mean, I sold. I literally, interestingly enough, I went to college. During high school, I had a very good GPA. Could have gone to whatever school I wanted to go to. I ended up staying home locally because, frankly, I was hustling cars out of my parents' driveway. I eventually, in my freshman year of high school, I made enough money. I bought my own townhouse. Kept hustling cars until one day I came home and the entire security guards of the neighborhood blocked my house and told me I couldn't sell cars in my neighborhood anymore. So that was fun. So I got a hangar at Boca Airport in South Florida, where I'm from, and I used to literally go to class. I think people thought I was a drug dealer because it was in the early 90s and I had a cell phone about the size of me. And I used to go get the voicemails off of it and then go meet people at the hangar, which was 10 minutes away, and go sell cars and go back to class afterwards. So I took my first job in technology because I did not want to be in the car business right out of school, and I took a massive pay cut. So but I realized, okay, that sucks, so I got to figure out how to do both quickly. So.
And you had a company before FitMetrix.
I did, yeah. So before, in the early 2000s, just when I was doing consulting and technology consulting, and a couple companies approached me sort of at the same time about building out shopping cart technology, and really at the time that conversation happened, there was two choices in the marketplace. There was Yahoo stores, some of you guys who may remember before Magento and Shopify and all these big guys now, and there was IBM. So you either paid nothing and got nothing, or you paid a lot of money and good luck. So we kind of realized there was a place in the middle of all of that. So started to build out a platform, had a handful of customers. The company was called Shop Visible, mainly because we figured out that e-commerce companies did a terrible job of getting top placement in Google and search rankings. So we figured out a way, or I guess I did, to have a good, robust way to get good search rankings and a good e-commerce experience. The quick backstory to this is that when Monica and I met, I was still running that business. We had grown. It was a very different business. We had about 150 customers. 3M was a customer, Office Depot, Tempur-Pedic, some big brands. And the e-commerce was a big piece of it. What the real piece of it was, not that different than today with us, it was all the back-end integration work. We realized this is the opportunity there. And so Monica and I met, started FitMetrix. There's some fun stories about in that world, but we're starting to grow. I found out, hey, there's a lot of inquiries about selling Shop Visible. We ended up getting acquired about 10 months later. And platform's still around. A lot of people that worked for me there are still there, which is super cool feeling for me. And they primarily don't do the e-commerce piece anymore. What they do is, if you guys, for example, buy shoes at Cole Haan online, and I just want to go pick them up in the store, or I want to just get them. I don't care where they come from. All the smart order routing will figure out, hey, they're not in the warehouse, but they're at the store down the street from where you live, and we're just going to ship them from there and all that. That was what we basically built. So it powers about, I don't know, probably 500 major retailers from, I forget them all now, but Ron John Surf Shop, Kohl's, on Michael Kors, some big brands. So pretty cool stuff.
Great. So we got a bit of the story of the beginnings of FitMetrix, the meeting with Monica, going to IHRSA. Can you, just to get us back on track chronologically, can you give us the moral of the IHRSA story, where you were pushing to go and Monica was saying, wait, let's hold on, we're not ready?
You know, it's so interesting. Between Monica and myself, we, in a lot of ways, we're extremely similar. In a lot of ways, we couldn't be more different from each other. I describe it as pulling her through quicksand. She describes it as wanting to kill me. Depends. But basically, it's the most amazing experience because, for me, two things. When you start a company, I firmly believe you have to have a partner. Like, trying to do it yourself is incredibly difficult for so many reasons, but you know, you see things from your perspective, and I was very fortunate to have Monica as my partner because I see the opportunity, I want to go after it, and I want to go fast, and she's extraordinarily detail-oriented and very thoughtful about the customer's experience, our customer's experience, as well as the consumer, and the combination of those two things is what made us so incredibly successful, and IHRSA was no different than that. When we went to that first IHRSA, I was like, you know, like I said up here, we really need to go. And Monica, at the time, she was so hesitant, but at the same time, when she did come to the other side of the quicksand, she basically made sure our booth was, I mean, you know, you'd walk up to, you'd think we were in business for 10 years. And everything just, like, you know, design was such an incredibly critical part of what we build, what we continue to build. We believe design is the number one most important thing. You know, at the end of the day, people don't go look at the code like, ooh, that's very sexy code, but they definitely like the way it looks, and you will win business because of that, and that's all Monica. I just have to make sure stuff didn't break too often.
When did you know that you had something?
So definitely that Orange Theory conversation was a big deal to us because they already had probably 50, 70 locations. I don't remember at the time, and so to have a company like that literally say, we're willing to pull the ripcord on what we have and go with something that doesn't even exist yet, because we're like, okay, this is obviously a pretty big deal. That was definitely a good time that happened. But I think coming out of that IHRSA, when literally I was writing the cycling platform on the airplane on the way there. And just to make sure when the Schwinn, thank you guys by the way, bike was at our booth, that was pretty funny. They wheeled a bike. I didn't know what the hell we were. They're like, here's a Schwinn bike. I'm like, wait, they're just giving us a Schwinn bike? That's pretty cool. And it was working. People were getting on the bike and seeing their data. And they're like, oh my God, I got to have that. That's when we knew. Like, we're like, all right, this is obviously people think it's cool. I have to say one other thing about the fitness industry that was so different than coming out of retail, and I've been in healthcare as well. People just like it. It's easier to get employees. It's easier to talk to customers. We all work out. We all, or at least know we should work out either way. And we all live and breathe this stuff. So it's just a fun thing to do.
Point of clarification, IHRSA, International Health and Racket Sports Association, which has become, oddly enough, one of the kind of the two major industry conferences, the other one being IdeaFit, is that correct?
IdeaFit, yeah.
How do you think about product market fit?
So I think that you got to find out if your product, you may think it's a good idea. How do you quickly go and figure out if there's actually fit in the marketplace? So for us, it's interesting because we knew right away, okay, heart rate, there were already people doing it. But we knew we wanted to do more than that. We knew we wanted to do the cycling leaderboard. We knew there wasn't anybody doing both at the same time. We knew that people weren't doing that. Oh, and by the way, let's integrate with a MINDBODY and bring that all together. So what we did was we just started talking to people, and they're like, yeah, I'd use that. Yeah, I would try that out. And then as that happened, and as we developed more products, like the visual workout builder that I mentioned earlier, we just started calling our customers, honestly. And we're like, would you use this? And we'd call big customers. We'd call small customers. We just ask hard questions. How would you use it? Would you pilot it? Would you be willing to pay this much for this? And then we would kind of tease it out in our sales pitches. I'd give a couple screenshots to our sales team, and they'd say, hey, listen, you guys are doing 10 demos a day, or each one of you guys, or whatever it is, be like, tease this out as the next thing we're coming out with, solicit feedback. Do you think that you would leverage this? Start building a backlog of people that would actually go use that thing. The biggest thing I learned between Shop Visible, which is an enterprise e-commerce platform, and then FitMetrix, which is much more moderately priced. Gyms are cheap, but for the most part, when it comes to paying for technology, at least historically, I think it's changing a little bit, but historically that's been the case. Retailers are willing to pay too much money. Maybe that's why they're in trouble, I don't know. Probably a balance in the middle. The thing that I learned, though, was that, just because you add a feature to your software, it doesn't mean that's expected or should be included in the price or it should just be given out. It has real value, real ROI to the business, and if it has real ROI to the business, it's going to warrant them, that thing being paid for. So what we were able to, why I say that is because as we had to define our box, I always describe it as defining a box of what the hell do you guys actually do, and that's when we said we're a member engagement platform. We said, well, does group instructor substitution, how does that benefit the member? We probably just made it up that it did, but no, we figured out that it did, and we said, well, would gyms, would boutique studios be willing to pay for this? And the answer was yeah, they would. And instead of just giving it away for free, we were able to say, cool, that belongs in the box. And sort of interesting, what I think is super interesting, MindBody runs the entire business, right? People are willing to pay, they always were willing to pay more money for FitMetrix than they were for the billing system, which is remarkable to me. It still is the case today. I don't know what that means about MindBody's pricing, but I know that it was always remarkable to us. It was always an uphill battle for people to see that value and being like, well, you should just charge $50 a month for your software. And Chanel's nodding, he goes through this, and just gradually being like, well, do I want to get 5,000 customers, or do I want to keep 2,500 and charge twice as much, right? It's a lot easier to support and scale that, right, and figure that out. So,
what mistakes did you make?
A lot. So I was really fortunate in that, well, two things I was really fortunate about. The first was I had done this once before, and it was only a few years earlier. So we were able to not make some of those same mistakes again, which didn't mean we weren't going to make a whole series of other mistakes. Hiring is a huge pain, not being more thoughtful sometimes about even some of your first employees, something you're going to be really cognizant of. I would say I have a belief, personally, this is a personal belief, that in my personal life and my business life is you have to make a decision, you got to stick with your decision, and it might be the wrong decision, but at least the wrong decision is better than indecision, in my opinion. And so we would go and say, hey, we think there's a good product market fit, to your earlier question, go build something out, but be honest with ourselves to figure out quickly, like, that was kind of a mistake. And so I think like any other startup, you don't want to pivot too much, you do have to pivot a little bit, and acknowledging you made a mistake if you went after something and not continue to throw good money after bad and just cut it off and let your ego be checked at the door.
How did you think about distribution?
So this is the coolest thing about the fitness space. Retail is so much harder. There's freaking partners. Like you guys are sitting here today, so we did whatever we could to take care of our partner relationships. So if MindBody brought us a customer, whether that customer had one location in Alaska, we do have a customer in North Pole, Alaska, by the way, it's unbelievable. On Santa Claus Lane, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Called me at 2 in the morning once. But those customers were treated like gold. Honestly, that partnership was so incredibly important. So we were really blessed to have MindBody as a partner. Some of MindBody's competitors were partners, but also folks like Coro is a huge partner, right? I mean, I read something on Instagram today that twice as many Schwinn bikes are in studios than I was reading. Yeah. There's twice as many Schwinn bikes than any other bike. Well, I'm going to hedge that bet. I'm going to go partner with those guys. And they liked us, and we really fostered that relationship. So we built a direct sales channel. We had initially me selling, and then that we scaled out past me very quickly, thank God. But we had direct sales folks until literally this month, maybe next month. I don't even know if it started yet. FitMetrix has never made one single outbound sales phone call by some miracle. It was all channel relationships, partnerships, referrals, word of mouth, and really awesome SEO. And we did pay for a little ads as well. So So yeah, direct trade shows, partnerships, a big proponent. Pay the API fees, it paid back X-fold. You know, we worked it into our financial planning. We knew we were going to have to pay it. We didn't like it. Our biggest check was people and MINDBODY, basically. I'm sure other people here can probably relate to that comment. And it was what it was, but it also got us massive market share, and we planned for it. We planned years in advance. We knew that's what the case was going to be.
Do you have an opinion on revenue share concerning distribution?
I'm okay with it. I honestly have always been okay with it. So prior to starting FitMetrix, I was really, I worked with Salesforce with a lot of their partners. This is actually super interesting. The company that acquired Shop Visible almost bought Magento. So that was really cool for me because I got to go to Magento's office and learn how to ask them like 1,000 questions about their marketplace. That was the thing I was most intrigued by. Like I did a question about filtering and searching on the marketplace. I was like, oh yeah, when's that going to happen? That's awesome. Whoever asked that earlier, I thought that was pretty cool. At the end of the day, Magento to me, Salesforce, those are like the gold standards of partnerships, and they take revenue share, and there's significant value in that. It does hurt, I'm not going to lie, when you have to write that check. Actually, they just debited to Amex. So it didn't hurt that bad, I guess, until you had to pay the Amex statement. But by the way, when you get bought, the miles on your Amex statement look awesome, I have to say. It doesn't hurt as much anymore. But I'm a big fan of it.
How does the customer play a role in your product development roadmap?
So this goes to the question earlier. Every customer, not every customer, you can tell your customers that are smart and are looking out sort of not just for themselves but for your best interests. And so I really don't care if it's the woman at Santa Claus Lane in North Pole, Alaska, or if it's Gold's Gym Corporate or somebody in between. If you just listen to the customer, you're going to start hearing stuff. And it was huge for me at Shop Visible. It was even much more huge for Monica and me here at FitMetrix. Basically, we told our team members, we told our account managers, we told our onboarders, we told our sales team, look, if you hear something, you're like, I think that's a good idea. You have access to our Jira development backlog, put in the roadmap as an idea, tell us where it came from and why it's a good idea. I don't care what customer it came from. We meet weekly, we review those. You start hearing things 2, 3, 4 times, you're like, all right, there's smoke there. There's absolutely smoke there. Can we monetize it? We'd model it and we would try it. We did fail a few times, but for the large part, we were successful in determining the good from the bad. And I do agree that you can't let your enterprise customers, you sign up for Gold's Gym, they're going to try to drive you to wherever. You have to be very thoughtful about what you say yes and no to. You have to be very thoughtful of, cool, I'm going to go build this for Gold's Gym, but I'm going to build it in a way that I know that the woman on Santa Claus Lane can use. And frankly, that's just what we've always done.
Any tips on incentivizing your workforce to be agile in that manner, to surface those ideas for your product development roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to take that a little differently. I'm 42 years old, so I was always the youngest person at every company. I started my own company, but I was always the youngest person, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And that's because now everyone that works for, Monica says that we're grandma and grandpa. I'm like, I like to think mom and dad, but whatever. But the thing is everyone's a millennial, right? At MINDBODY, for the most part, almost everybody is. At FitMetrix, everybody almost was. And they're just, millennials are not incentivized in the same way that my generation and my older generations are, right? People just love that their feedback is heard. That's the number one thing I've noticed. So if Melanie, who's downstairs, if anyone wants to say hi to her, we'll do. If Melanie's like, hey, I got off the phone with this customer and this is what they were saying, and I think that's a really good idea. And some period, 3, 6, 9, 12 weeks later, we do a lunch and learn where we show all the new features for that. We do agile development, so we release every 3 weeks. And she sees her idea was heard and actually happened into the product. The amount of job satisfaction that she has and where that momentum takes her is ridiculous. That's what we noticed.
Did the platforms you wanted to integrate to change anything about FitMetrix?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were going to be a heart rate and cycling platform. And we were happy with that. We modeled it out. our whole business model was based on, hey, let's take that and just let's gamify it. We had really good fortune to talk to the video game creator of what was that game? Do you remember? Candy Crush. That was pretty cool. And he was going to help us actually. Hey, I love the fitness space. I'm trying to figure out how to gamify it. Let me work with you guys. That's the path we were going down. Create the most cool in-studio gamified experience it can be. But then what happened was we said, well, we signed an ABC Financial customer as an example. And then they'd say, hey, you know, ABC Financial really can't support this in their business model. Do you think you guys would be able to do something to help that? And we're like, well, that's interesting because maybe we can find 20 more ABC Financial customers who have that same need. And all of a sudden we realized, you know what, we're not the game, okay, Monica and I aren't that fun anyway. So we're not the gamify guys. We're the guys that make the member experience better, that helps the gym to then keep and retain their customers. So ultimately, our business model definitely, it wasn't that we necessarily made like a massive like 90-degree pivot, but we definitely had to take some time to realize who the heck are we, and you know, we can fill and solve problems. We still frankly do that today.
And why not just do it all? You alluded to this earlier, that people wanted you to just do what MINDBODY did.
Yeah, you know, the grass is not always greener on the other side. You go talk to MINDBODY support, billing issues, payment issues, payroll issues, employee issues. It's just not what we did. We wanted to focus, for us, we wanted to focus on the member. And it was sort of Rick Stolmeyer says this, he's like, you know, you got to find out what your North Star is and kind of guide toward that. That was us, right? The member of that studio, the member of that gym is the person that we were most interested in solving to, so that if you have that app on your phone and you can get a really personalized message about whatever, you know, compete on a leaderboard, and then ultimately lose weight and do those things, because that's what this is all about, right? Helping people live healthier lives. That's what she and I, you know, Monica and I wanted to accomplish for people. That's what we did, and that's what we focused on. Making sure they paid their bill, and making sure that there's a collection behind that. If they don't, it's absolutely of little interest to us. So we didn't want to go be the 37th MINDBODY copycat that's selling for half the price.
How did you get capital?
So we're a unique story in that Monica and I were able to fund the initial development ourselves. And then because I had sold my prior company, we were able to continue to fund it, but also we realized any good technology company needs to have a board. You need to have people that are smarter than you, that have had the experience, that know how to get you from where you are to certain growth milestones they're going to push you toward, and then ultimately help you exit. And so we didn't want to just take, you know, family money or our friends of friends, and we're like, oh cool, I've got that, what you do is cool, take money. So we were very thoughtful about that. So why we were fortunate was, frankly, we lost money all the way until we sold. So that was kind of, you know, the story of any technology company, I suppose. But right. But anyway, we had to we kept reinvesting ourselves, and that gave our board confidence, and they kept reinvesting with us. Our board was made up of 2 people that I had prior experience with at Shop Visible that were very, very smart in areas that Monica and I just weren't. So we wanted to augment our skill sets with people that knew what they were doing. And then a 5th Beatle, if you will, came on at the very end, about a year before we got acquired. And he had very deep industry connections and experience and investments. And so he was, you know, kind of a big asset toward the end as well. So, you know, we definitely raised money along the way. We never got greedy. We always bootstrapped. That's another thing that we just, from a philosophical perspective, that we believed in. And in the end, we got to a point of the market's opportunity was so big, and we could never get to it being bootstrapped anymore. That's where, you know, Monica and I had to make the decision of, do we sell? Do we raise a ton of money? You know, what do we do? And we took a hard look at that, and we said, well, we can raise a ton of money. Risk is higher. It's going to push our exit 5 years later, right? Or we take less today, and we have no regrets, and we went with the prior, you know, with that decision. Obviously, we went with that decision.
Soon I will open it up for audience questions. Maybe we'll get our mic runners in place. I'll just ask a couple more. How did you scale on your way to the exit?
Yeah, so scaling, I take that question from both a people perspective and a technology perspective. So from a technology perspective, scaling is a lot easier today than it was when I built my last company and any technology I did before. We have AWS, right? So it's super easy. It's like, oh crap, we're hitting these particular load issues here. We'll just spin up a new server. Ah, load issue went away. So, you couldn't do that before, right? It was so much more difficult. So obviously we were thoughtful from a technology architecture perspective and how we built things out, and we were able to just continuously stay on top of it, focus. We had a lot of tools to monitor performance and usage. People was the harder, was definitely the harder problem. We only had so much budget. We're bringing on, X customers a month. So this is where Mike Hirsch, who's on our board, or was on our board, a good friend of Monica and mine, he is what Monica likes to say, a spreadsheet ninja. Everyone needs one of those, by the way. So he was able to help us to figure out our plan for forecast and then how to grow the business. And oh, by the way, don't let him, if your margins go below 65 or 70%, no one's going to want to buy you. I must have heard that 5,000 times. So making sure that we figured out how to do it, sucked it up. I read a quote somewhere yesterday. I think I showed Monica. You don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful. I thought that was a very good quote because that was how we lived.
That's Tony Robbins.
Awesome, Vincent. I like it. I just quoted Tony Robbins in front of people. That's fantastic.
What is fantastic about FitMetrix? This talk is called How to Build Something Fantastic.
So I did tell Johnny that my number one answer was Monica. Was the most awesome thing about FitMetrix, but besides that, she's embarrassed now. What's cool? We got to kind of build the company that we wanted to work for. Somebody had given me that quote as well, and I always told that to Monica. I think, you work at a big company, you can have a job at IBM for the rest of your life, right? And we all can do that. But most of the people that are in this room did not necessarily go down that path. You took a chance, whether it's your own company or whether it's somebody you work for that's innovative and you want to grow with it. And I think the most fantastic thing for me about FitMetrix is in the 4 or 5 years we've been doing this, watching the people that started with us early on that are still with us evolve, and what they're able to do today versus when they came on with us, and the fact that we had that effect on their lives is pretty awesome. There's a woman, like I said, she's downstairs, Melanie Wilson. I was texting with her the other day. If anyone talks to her, she just crushed it at some Las Vegas CrossFit thing. I was watching it on stream. It was pretty cool. Anyway, I wrote her a text the other day, and I said, from your boss. I think I'm your ex-boss now. And she's like, no, you're always going to be my boss. I said, okay, thank you, that meant a lot. But it was just so cool to watch people evolve, and the question earlier about how do you inspire people to give you feedback about the product, I didn't have to do anything. They wanted to because we built a culture that awarded that.
Fantastic. What questions do you have for Josh?
Here's one here. Good question, Josh. Great story.
Thank you.
For sharing. Very inspiring. How much of your development changed or your mission since you joined MINDBODY?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's very interesting because, when we got acquired, of course we could do our own thing. We have our roadmap of what we want to do. For the most part, MINDBODY's been really, really good about saying, you guys are the expert in member engagement. You know what you need to do. Just go do that. Like, we don't want to screw up your special sauce. Go do that. But at the same time, MINDBODY's got like 1,800 people that have 1,800 opinions. Hey, we need security. We're a publicly traded company now, needs to be at this level when you guys were not necessarily at that level. We need these tools to be in place as we integrate the systems, that you have to do these things. And then, of course, we're growing very fast. Since we got acquired, our sales have gone up. I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot. And so we got to continue to scale, which means we got to make some other changes. So my job has effectively now changed a little bit into how do I balance our backlog, because we do 3-week sprints, into making sure those critical publicly traded things are getting taken care of. We're satisfying the customer by coming out with new products and features to our existing stuff, and scale. And so that's probably where it's changed the most. There's things that we just never would have had to do that we have to now do, and finding the balance. Now, that being said, my development team's doubled in size, so that helps too.
Josh, beyond your roadmap, what's Blue Texas like? So think
It's at home, 100%. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be tied back to a physical experience. Peloton, obviously, is a huge thing. I think, Peloton's now offering high-intensity classes without you having to be on your bike. They want you to plug in the TV into your actual TV. I know class passes here somewhere. I saw a name badge. Their class passes came out with something similar. A lot of our customers are looking at it. I still think it's like the movies. I don't know if this is a bad analogy. I still like going to the movie theater. I am not working out in my basement. And I work out a lot. I'm going to the gym because I want to have that community, that experience. But you have to balance. You're going to have to balance. I don't think virtual only is going to win, and I don't think physical only is going to win. I think it's going to be both combined.
Hi, Josh. My name is Ross from FitMetrix, and you talked earlier about hiring. Could you talk a little bit more about your challenges that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I mean, salespeople sell, so they always look good on paper. I think number one thing that Monica and I realized was, after a couple of failures, hire for cultural fit first. Skills can come second. If somebody fits and you know they're going to be a really good teammate and they're not going to be, I'll use sales as an example. I don't want to hire a shark into my fishbowl, right? Yeah, you may be the most awesome salesperson. If you're going to crush the culture of my sales team, I don't want you. From a development, obviously my technology background, from a development perspective, that's the hardest thing to hire for. You test people, you're like, all right, I think this is going to be good. Our failure rate is still probably 33%, maybe more on those guys. It's hard, but fail fast is the best thing I would say. Like, if you recognize the signs early, I promise they're not going away. And just act on it and move on quickly, and I think everyone will be honest about it. But yeah, we really hire for culture first and skill second for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, so I think a lot of kind of what I'm reading into in terms of kind of your road and the decisions you made had to do with confidence on some level, and thinking back to where you were 13 or whatever and started selling cars, and you made these decisions to go forward and kind of quickly said, I'm going to go to IHRSA, I'm going to drive ahead, and I'm sort of deal with what happens. And for me, that seems kind of be coming from that mindset of sort of just jumping in and saying, I'm going to try to sell this person's car. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm just going to kind of go for it. So was that something, when you went into selling cars, was that something you learned how to do when you were 13? Were you terrible at the beginning, or were you okay at the beginning and kind of figured it out? In other words, how did you become a salesperson? Is that something you feel is innate, or is how much of that is something you learned?
That's an awesome question. So I have to say my dad's the best salesperson I've ever seen. So I definitely grew up in that way. The best salesperson is the person that you don't realize is selling you, right? Frankly, I think this is hard for me to answer this because recently MINDBODY took the entire sales organization through something called Selling Through Curiosity, which was this idea that, they took every salesperson from every office and flew them to Los Angeles and completely shut the sales team down for like 4 days. It was remarkable. Monica, we were like, how do you do that? We got to hit our numbers. But they did. And it was this whole idea about listening to the customer, asking engaging questions, trying to learn stuff. And so to your question, for me, it just kind of came innately. Like, I just kind of knew, like, well, I don't know. I can't live in a vacuum. What are your needs? Why are you talking to me? What are your pain points? How can I help you? And then we trained our sales team to do the same thing. And to your other question or thought about confidence, yeah, you got to believe in what you're selling 100% or what you're building, but you have to get customer feedback, and you have to be very honest with yourself if it's not going to work, or have Monica as a business partner to tell you it might not work. But either way, you gotta be very honest with yourself, and as much confidence as you want. But if it's just not a good product fit, you gotta throw it away and get something else.
Okay, one last question.
Hi, I'm Mark. So you mentioned that, and I like what you said about hiring for culture first and skill second, because it's probably the most important thing is having culture of the team.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, what you do when you hire for culture, like sort of what things you think about, knowing that you want different perspectives in your company, not just to get everything together, but people that they have.
I have to say one of the greatest attributes that I believe in Monica is she's very much about sort of heterogeneous, right? race, different sex, different backgrounds, different everything. And when you do that, people come from very different perspectives. So yeah, cool, we're all going to be friends, but they got to work, and you got to come from a background, whether it's from a family or from a job or from whatever that you think is going to fit well. But you also know whatever culture you've established for your company, that person is going to fit within. I always know. The thing I'd always say to Monica is I'd walk out if I was hiring, especially maybe not for a developer, but for every client-facing position, I'm like, I'd go hang out with that person and have a drink at a bar with them. I knew I'd want to hire them. If I walked out of the room and I'm like, they were smart and I know they got it, but I feel a little creeped out by them. The feeling you have in an interview, you're kind of like, I'm not hiring that person. I know my gut's going to tell me like I've made that mistake enough times. I don't want it. But if I was going to go have a drink with someone at the bar, I'd definitely hire them. I don't care what their background was, because I knew that meant they were interesting and they were smart and thoughtful about what they were talking to me about. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Josh.